Welcome everyone to this this course that we are doing in partnership with TrustLaw, Thomson Reuters Foundation's TrustLaw. They're putting together a legal health check workshop with us today, and we'll be going through a series of thoughts for you to consider. And so I would just like to recommend that you mute yourself for the presentation part. We will have everyone please enter your questions in the chat box. At the end, we will have a time of Q&A, and we will go through any questions that you have. So for now, we're actually going to have Wayne Chia, who is the head of SETH, the training hub with TBN, do a short introduction before we pass on to TrustLaw. So Wayne, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I see that this is quite an interesting. Let's see, how many participants do we have here? Okay, we have quite a good mix. So welcome everyone, and a very good morning to all of you guys. This is actually one of our electives for the Social Enterprise Training Hub program that we are actually making open to our partners. If you've heard about this session, probably is because you've attended some of our conferences, some of the events, or maybe you have subscribed to our newsletter, or all of the above, right? Or maybe you're interested in our Social Enterprise Training Hub program. So regardless, it's great that you are here. We hope you enjoyed this session. We are really diving in a little bit about the legal aspects for social enterprise. Just to wind back a little bit, TBN Asia is a nonprofit focused on the entire social enterprise ecosystem. So we have 5 pillars. Events and conferences is something that we just wrapped up recently. All of the proceeds is going to our second pillar, which is the resilience program, where it's a new program we set up just to help social enterprises tide through this difficult time. Just to tide through this difficult COVID season. Then we also have Investors Club, which is we invite people who are serious into investing into social enterprises and want to get their feet wet. This is the place to be in. We also have another piece on the Expertise Network. This is actually a skills volunteering network where we invite you in to say that regardless of what you do as a professional, you can also contribute to impact. And then the last piece is the one that we are in today. This is the Social Enterprise Training Hub program, where we help high potential social enterprises be more scalable and be more investment ready. So we have a couple of, this is a 6-month program. It used to be originally a physical, but we have since transited into a virtual program because of COVID. And we are actually wrapping up the first cohort, and we are moving to the second cohort. So this is just a very quick introduction of where we are today. If you're a social enterprise and you're interested to learn more about the Social Enterprise Training Program, or SETH for short, which we are opening up, applications for cohort 2 in 1st of July, do join us, or you can reach out to myself or Bernice to find out more. Over to you, Bernice.
Thank you, Wayne. Now I'll pass it on to Fiona and Emily, who will be doing our presentation today. And thank you and welcome from TrustLaw, and thank you for your time in going through this with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Bernice. Thank you, Wayne. Hi, everyone. My name is Amélie Desjardins. I'm the legal program manager of Thomson Reuters Foundation based in Bangkok, and myself and my colleague Fiona, we're covering Asia Pacific. Next slide, please. So this is us, as you can see. You can also see us as video. Throughout the workshop today, feel free to, as Bernice mentioned, to use the chat to ask any questions you may have. Just a quick introduction on us, and we will be going more in depth about what the Reuters Foundation and TrustLaw is doing. We're here to give you, to have a bit of a brainstorming, to have a bit of a conversation and like a reflection on what your legal needs are, and see what we can do to help you. Just a disclaimer here that we're not qualified to provide legal advice, and in all cases we couldn't be providing legal advice just like that, over the platform, open up like this to everyone. So just to make sure that the questions that you have, as if they are super precise, like we might not be able to provide like a legal answer to that questions specifically. Also, you know, we have, I believe, attendees from, you know, various countries, so the responses may vary from the region, but we're here today to explain to you how we could potentially, you know, how we can provide you assistance to those legal needs that we might discover today, or maybe you know already exactly what you need. Let's do that together. So next slides, please. So yeah, so a bit of, you know, how today will go. We're going to give you a brief introduction on the foundation, on TrustLaw, which is our specific program that we're running here in the region. After that, we're going to be showing you a bit of example of what we've been doing, what kind of case example, what kind of, you know, impacts, some impact stories also that we have here in the region. And after that, we will be doing a bit of a dive in. We're going to do what we call a legal health check workshop. And we're going to be presenting to you guys our COVID-19 resources that we have published and that are available for you to use for free. And then after, it's going to be questions and next steps. So yeah, and just to also to have your phone and ready to be jumping in on different platforms. We have today, we're trying to make this workshop as interactive as possible. This is some kind of workshop that normally we would like to be conducting in person with post-it and breakout session. Today we believe that we have enough attendees to make this kind of interactive. So feel free to participate as much as you can, even though we're conducting this online. Next slide, please. So first of all, you know, Fiona, if you want to take this away for just to explain this one.
Sure. So yeah, welcome everyone, and thank you, Emily. My name is Fiona, and I also work at TrustLaw based in Bangkok. So before we begin the workshop, we thought it would be fun to know a little bit about you before we start our introduction. So here is the link in the chat box. If you can take out your phone, scan the QR code, or if you prefer to do this on your computer, please feel free to click the link. And we just have 2 questions to get to know you a little better. And we'll be sharing the results so that we can all see who's here with us today. So let me... Yeah, while you're getting ready, I will see how to change my screen. Here we go. So hopefully you're now ready and you can start answering the first question. And we have, I believe, 14 participants. So it would be good to first of all see where are you based. Yeah, we see results coming in now. Yeah, we'll give it a few more seconds. Oh, okay. So right now we have most participants based in Indonesia, but maybe there are some more coming. Anyone else? It seems like 7 people have taken the survey so far, and we should have a few more coming. Anyone? Last minute? Okay, well, with okay, it is coming in now. It seems like we have a lot of people based in Indonesia with us today, but also some from Singapore or Malaysia. And we're curious to know if the other person is also based in Southeast Asia or another part of Asia. Okay, looks like we've had enough time on this one. Now to the next question. it would be great to know what areas your social enterprise are working in. So either it's the social issue, for example, if you're working with youth, or if you're empowering persons with disabilities, and then also the industry that you're working in. So we have some results here so far, giving it a little more time. Yeah, we've got youth and employment, women empowerment, we have refugees, fishery, poverty. And then in terms of the industry, it looks like there are some of you in the medical one, more coming, aquaculture, data labeling, job creation, food security. Yeah, circular economy, F&B, positive YD, crowdfunding. Wow, it's all coming in now. And we can see, yeah, it seems like quite a few of you put medical, poverty, and women empowerment. So there are some overlaps, perhaps. Any more? I see 12 participants. I can give it maybe 20 seconds more if anyone has more to put. But at least so far we can see participants today, all of you come from quite diverse I didn't realize you were not seeing the results, sorry. So here are the results on the areas that you're in. So as you can see, everyone is in quite a diverse, well, we have a very diverse group to say today, coming from Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, but all of you seem to be doing similarly socially missioned work in your social enterprises, but in across a wide sector of needs as well as industries. So that's really interesting. We have, I think everybody participated now. So I will go back to the presentation and Emily and I will start to share more about what we do and trying to see how we can meet your legal needs. And there will be more interactive activities later on. So keep your phone close and let me go back to the other slide. So Emily, oh, okay. I'll just briefly explain what we, who we are. So TrustLaw is a service within the Thomson Reuters Foundation, and we are the corporate foundation of the Thomson Reuters business. Leveraging on the media and legal expertise that we have, we strive towards 3 pillars. So our goal as an organization is to foster media freedom because we believe that independent media can provide impartial and accurate information for society to make better informed decisions. We are also striving to build more inclusive economies where no one and no group is left behind, either through traditional models with working with nonprofits, as well as now players in social innovation sector. And we're also looking to work with companies and looking into their ESG frameworks. And then lastly, also to advance human rights, particularly in the fields of women, LGBTI, land and property rights, climate and environment, modern slavery, and digital and data rights. And all these 3 pillars are pushed through our services across our 4 programs. And we have an editorial team of our own reporting on underreported stories within our 3 pillars. And we also have a media development team that trains journalists in countries where independent media may not be there yet. We have a trust conference that happens every year that brings all the pillars together. And then we have our legal program, TrustLaw, which we'll share more about now. So over to Emily.
Thank you, Fiona. So yeah, as Fiona mentioned, the Thomson Reuters Foundation has multiple programs and platforms. TrustLaw, more specifically, we are a platform that connects and that aims to connect NGOs and social enterprise to pro bono legal help. So we are a membership-based platform. The platform is free for everyone. So, and it's a one-off, membership. So it's not something that you need to renew annually. Towards the presentation, we'll do the exercise and the interactive session on legal needs, but towards the end we'll really show you like how to become a member and how does it work to post a request on our platform. So I mean, this is what you see right now on the screen is really like when you arrive on the website, what you see literally. And then to join TrustLaw, you click on it and the application takes 10-15 minutes. So TrustLaw is really think about like a portal where literally when you're a member, you log in and then you post your legal request. And then on the lawyer's front, like they receive a weekly emails and they see all the legal requests to answer. And then the connection happens through us. So we'll give you more details further in the presentation today on like the nitty gritty on how to get onboarded. But we're happy to have, I think we can move to the next slide, Fiona. So yeah, so just to show a bit of our impact, we are a global network. We have teams across the globe. We work across 175 countries. So from LA to Bangkok, we're happy to cover multiple time zones. Fiona and I were covering Asia Pacific. We also have a team in Mumbai covering South Asia with whom we work very closely. We have, yeah, as you can see, that's like big or global numbers. So all that to say that those numbers may seem big, but if you need assistance in another country, like we most likely have a network of lawyers that can help. So it's not only limited to Southeast Asia, or it's not only limited to the country that you're based. If you need a comparative legal research from different jurisdictions, whether the US or the UK or some countries in Africa, or, we do have teams to support and carry the projects forward. Next slide, please. So a bit of what we can do, as I mentioned, we're here to connect NGOs and social enterprise to pro bono legal help. We do a lot of things, but of course there are some little things that we do not do. In terms of what we can provide, if we can split it in two broad areas, we help with legal advice and legal research. So in terms of what we do in terms of legal advice, we're going to dive into that more later on, but these are like the general theme that you can think of. So commercial contracts, corporate IP, employment, banking and finance, pretty much everything that regulates the day-to-day. So whether it's governance, structuring, lease, all that. What we cannot do, that's like the not really fun part, but I really like to say it up front, just in terms of managing expectations. We don't post requests that are like conflicts, like litigations or conflict resolutions. We do provide research on background and like understanding your rights and obligations, but we don't do like litigations, and we don't do also requests for individuals. So. But other than that, there's pretty much, we cover a lot of things. Next slide, please. So yeah, so as I mentioned, we do advice, we help with the research, and as we'll be able to show later on with some example, we're helping. We always like to support research in different areas that support our 3 pillars: human rights, inclusive economies, and media freedom. So a bit of example of of research we've been supporting so far: modern slavery, social innovation, media freedom, and we've been happy to facilitate also like cross-border research. So for example, a social enterprise that has an innovative idea, but think that maybe somehow somewhere else in the world, they've had similar, but they want to understand the legal issues and components, like we can provide this kind of like background comparative research. Next slide, please. So Fiona, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. So here are some examples of the research that we have facilitated. And as Emily said, a lot of the research are for organizations that have an advocacy part. So the research can inform the lobbying that they do to governments to push for legal reforms. But another part is also to publish some public guides that may be useful for the wider sector. So I'm just highlighting a few that we have done for building the social enterprise ecosystem. We've done quite a few guides to look into the legal structuring options across the world. So you can see on the screen on the left, we have one for Southeast Asia, looking into ASEAN, and it covers 8 countries. It doesn't cover Singapore because there's already a guide done in Singapore, but other than that, all the other countries are covered. It looks into the pros and cons of different legal structures that a social enterprise can take. And this is especially helpful from what we hear, because there are no defined way for how can you be an actual social enterprise when there's no structure that is set up for that. So we have it available on our website, and we can also share the links later on with you. Apart from in Asia or in ASEAN, we've also had structuring guides in the US, in the UK, in Switzerland, and I've also put an example, the third one from the left, a guide for UK social enterprises on balancing the purpose and profit. So it looks even deeper into how to actually structure it, because they have a social enterprise structure in the UK. But these are just examples to show that apart from helping individual organizations, we also see if there are research that we can facilitate to help build the ecosystem overall. And on the topic of social enterprise work, apart from TrustLaw, our wider foundation also has a focus on social entrepreneurship under building the inclusive economies pillar. And in our foundation, every year we run a public opinion on a different matter. In 2016, we did it on the best countries to be a social entrepreneur, and we allow public to, we have a survey for the public to fill in, and later on we analyze the results, and then we repeated this in 2019 to compare whether there has been some changes. Looking into today's participants, where you're from, I would just let you know from last year's poll then, actually from public opinion, Singapore was ranked 5th out of the 44 countries that we did the survey in. Indonesia came 9th, and Malaysia was the 30th country. This may be interesting to those of you who want to know more. It looks into the different factors that make a country kind of the best place to, for a social enterprise, including government support or access to investment, or the public understanding of what a social enterprise is. So the link is here on the slide, and we'll share the slides with you later on, and you can have a look at the poll in more details in your own time. So now, moving on to the next part of our presentation, we understand that all of you may be at a different stage with your social enterprise, but we thought that it will be useful to share some case examples and also examples of requests that we've received from our members in Asia to highlight some of the top legal considerations that social enterprises should be thinking about as they build them, as you build on your operations and your companies in the long term. So here is a graph to show you what we have found as trends in Asia Pacific of what are some of the legal topics that social enterprises have come to TrustLaw to request assistance in. And as you can see, corporate needs is actually the top need from what we see, followed by commercial contracts, and then intellectual property and privacy, and finally employment. We're gonna go into deeper details of what falls under each category, but just to show you, these are the trends that we have found in Asia Pacific from the last 10 years that TrustLaw has existed. Now we understand beforehand that most of you will be based in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So we've also put up some data on this. And as you can see on the left with Singapore, the trend matches what we see in Asia Pacific. So the needs again are firstly corporate needs, followed by commercial contracts and intellectual property and privacy, and then employment, and the rest comes banking, finance, public regulatory law. In Malaysia, we see a slightly different trend where we have commercial contracts and intellectual property and privacy coming first, followed by banking, finance, and employment. We haven't had enough data to put this together in Indonesia, but it looks a little similar to Malaysia. And we also thought about, there is a slight difference in the trends in Asia Pacific and Singapore and Malaysia. And one explanation may be that from our membership, the Malaysian social enterprises are more at an early stage. And so they seem to be focusing on getting sound contracts to keep investment coming, protecting the products that they're innovating. Whereas in Asia Pacific and Singapore, there are more growth stage or even more established social enterprises. And as they have been looking into securing contracts and intellectual property rights, they're also then looking into corporate rights and making sure that the corporate and governance issues are well in place for them to expand or grow into the next stage. So here are some trends, just to give you an overview of what we have seen. And now we're going to dive into each topic with more examples of the requests that we have seen. So over to Emily.
Thank you. So the first, as I mentioned, in terms of legal advice, you know, and as Fiona just showcased, one of the top area of legal area that is coming most handy in the region is corporate structuring and governance issues. So just to give you a bit of an example, and just, you know, to start your thinking about, you know, what are your needs, what are your organization's needs in terms of structuring and governance. So a type of advice that, you know, are quite common, so we can provide advice on structuring governance for international expansion, hybrid entities. So for example, you're based in one country, you have programs in another country, or you want to expand your market, you want to distribute your product somewhere else. How to approach commercial contracts. Do you need to register an entity in another country? You're a social enterprise, you want to raise from investors based in Europe, based in the US. Do you need to have an entity there? What kind? Would you need support to get set up there? That's all the type of like structuring and governance advice that we can support. Also, assistance to update governance documents to reflect commitment to invest profits into your social mission. That's a good example. A lot of like social impact investors require that, you know, a clear the social mission, their track record is very well explained. Ourselves, you know, for our platform, when we onboard new members who are social enterprise, we do ask also to see this commitment of reinvesting profits into your social mission. So if your governance documents are a bit maybe broad or, you know, vague, we provide assistance for you to help you clarify your social mission and your goal. Yeah, Fiona, if you can maybe just give a bit of feedback.
Yes, so under each legal area, we will provide a bit of insight or tips from the social enterprise members that we have. So here under corporate needs, we have Nexus for Development based in Singapore, sharing that they did a governance project with us. And as you can see from their feedback, a lot of the times governance is very important because it builds a strong foundation for the enterprise. It helps with the credibility, the sustainability. It can also help avoid disputes, but sometimes it's not prioritized because it seems to be quite burdensome, or it can be costly if you're finding lawyers externally. So at TrustLaw, we're able to help with reviewing governance documents and making sure that it helps set the foundation strong for your enterprises as you look to grow. And just another tip from another social enterprise, it's actually quite a young entrepreneur who came to us to update their governance documents to put their social mission and the commitment to have an asset lock to keep their social enterprise really as social, even though they're looking to make profits. And from this young entrepreneur, his mindset was that even though he's still young and he's running his own social enterprise, one day he's looking ahead already that when he retires, when he passes this on, he wants to make sure that the social mission stays in the enterprise. So that's another reason then to make sure that the governance documents really reflect what your social mission is as a social enterprise.
Thank you. Now, commercial contracts. So pretty much every social enterprise, will have to deal with some commercial contracts before. If you don't, I would be curious to hear what kind of social enterprise you're running. But when we think commercial contracts, that's the kind of thing that we can help, in the sense that we can help review, amend, or draft agreements, pretty much of any kind. So supply distribution agreement, services agreement, lease, partnerships. I mean, assistant to interpret clauses in contracts. So for example, let's say let's say you have a product that you're distributing, you want to make a collaborations with another company, or you want to make a big sales. I mean, if you want to be drafting the agreement from scratch, depending on setting the terms yourself, that's something we can help. If you're about to make a big sale or an agreement with another company, or again, like expanding in a new market, for example, not only it's useful to know like which kind of entity or regulations are set up there, but also you want to make sure that you have strong contracts. So even if another party provide the agreement to you, we can help you feel confident and understanding your rights and obligations, and and have lawyers also suggesting amendments according to your needs. So I mean, if you have any questions of any kind of like agreements or contracts, like you're unsure if we can help support, the answer is most probably yes. But feel free, if you have any questions, as we just mentioned, to ping us in the chat. So yeah, commercial contracts, I think it's broad enough, but I think it's clear. Fiona, would you like to give a bit of feedback? Thank you.
Yes. Yes, so usually what we see with social enterprises, a lot of the times they use template agreements either found online or somebody sent it over to them. It's not customized to their needs. But here we have a social enterprise in Malaysia. They sell handicrafts and goods made by vulnerable communities and the traditional craftsmen in Malaysia. And from their feedback, it shows that a sound agreement actually helps in the long run with financial sustainability and keeping their financial situation stable. With another example, there's a social enterprise that had an investment agreement that was drafted from the investor side, and they had a very prestigious law firm, and they put in a lot of the clauses that do not fit with the small social enterprise that they are. So they came to us to make sure that we also find a law firm to review that for them, making sure it brings them to the same level. So that it doesn't only advance the investor's interest, but it also protects the social enterprise.
So third other key components that we've seen in the trends is IP, so intellectual property and data protection. So a bit similarly to commercial contracts, all the type of like agreements that you can think of, licensing agreement, confidentiality, NDAs, things to protect like your data. You want to make sure that both from an employee side, but also the sellers, that your information doesn't go away. We can help with this. Your brand, your trade name, we can help also assisting in terms of understanding the trademark requirements. I mean, in terms of also managing expectations, let's say you want to register your brand as a trademark, we provide the legal assistance for you to understand what's required, what's the process, what kind of filing do you need to do. But in terms of like the cost of the trademark itself would be borne by the social enterprise themselves. But in terms of understanding and helping you filing, the lawyers that we can help you find, would help with that process. And if you're unsure of what kind of like IP protection you need, this is also the type of like general advice we can help support. With IP, we're going to go into more details with COVID-19, but for example, we've had social enterprise that had, let's say they were doing in-person delivery, and now they had to conduct with COVID-19 their operations from in-person to online. Are you well covered online? Do you have website terms and conditions? Maybe you put together a little form. Is it enough? What else do you need? That's the kind of help we can help you find.
Yeah, and in terms of the feedback from the example that we have, this is from a social enterprise that invents their own air purifiers, and they put data online on how their products compare with other products in the market. So the advice that they came to us for, looking into intellectual property, but also competition law, ensures that they can use this information for marketing on their website while not infringing on any other company's rights, especially of the larger brands that they may be comparing themselves to. Otherwise, it could lead to a costly and long dispute.
Of course, employment, this is something that all social enterprise, everyone has to deal with. So in terms of what we can, help with employment, again, it's very broad. We can help with understanding, building the human rights policies or HR manual you may need. As Fiona mentioned, similarly to commercial contracts, a lot of social enterprise, find employment agreement templates online, which is a
I think, Emily, you might have frozen. Fiona?
Yeah, I think she.
Yes, I think. Yeah. So while we wait for her to come back. Yeah. So I think Emily was just saying that a lot of the organizations sometimes they also find the employment contracts online, and we understand that sometimes you may be hiring different groups. So there could be full-time staff, part-time staff, or volunteers. It could also be your local nationals or other or foreign nationals. So depending on the countries that you're based in, there could be different laws that would apply. So we would also then recommend finding lawyers to be looking over and making sure that your employment contracts protect your organization, but also not getting you into trouble, and that you're meeting your responsibilities according to the laws. And from the example that we have, this time from a social enterprise in Cambodia, they work with local musicians, and their goal is to promote local music, traditional music. And they came to us requesting support to get commercial contracts with the musicians that they're working with. And as seen, highlighted from their feedback here, it shows that getting these contracts can help demonstrate professionalism, both for their social enterprise, but in this case, also legitimizing their industry as well. So we cannot emphasize then how important this is also for the growth of social enterprises. Now moving on, here are some other examples. We didn't really get to highlight the other legal areas, so we thought we could highlight it with an example. Starting from the first one on the left, it's from a social enterprise in Indonesia this time that makes clean water accessible. And they came to us asking for assistance to register the trademark for their name and logo and the copyright of their product. And you can see from their feedback that with this support, they actually, it helps increase the product satisfaction and also trust amongst their customers. And it's also important to protect them. We've had cases where social enterprises have found their names or their products being used without their authority or counterfeited. And by that stage, it already leads to a dispute. So before a dispute arises, it would be great to protect your intellectual property rights to avoid any unnecessary, long and costly and burdensome battles with whoever is infringing on your rights. In the middle, we have an example of how crucial regulatory advice can be as well when it comes to activities that require licensing. So here we have a social enterprise in Hong Kong that facilitates online fundraising on their platform. But any platform that has transactions, whether it's with your local, so local transactions or cross-border transaction, there may be some licensing that is involved. So they came to us looking with this advice, and from their own words, it was a life and death matter for them. Otherwise, they could have had to shut down their services if they did not comply with the license. So here it highlights how regulatory advice can also be important for your operations. And then lastly, we have another social enterprise in Singapore coming to us with an idea it's a more of a dynamic request to create phantom share schemes with their employees. And as we found lawyers to do that for them, they see that it can help incentivize their staff. And also just to highlight that this is also something that our lawyers in our network can help support. if they're higher level finance or employment or corporate needs. So I see, yeah, I see there are some questions coming in. I will quickly take them as I think Emily is not back with us.
Back, yes.
Oh, okay. I will just quickly, Emily, would you like to take the questions?
Maybe we can keep them for later.
Oh, okay. Sure. Great.
Thank you.
Great. Glad to know you're back. Yes. So here we have concluded the second part, highlighting the top legal considerations, and we'll be going through the questions that you just raised in more details. Now moving on to some of the things that we have been doing for COVID-19 before we go into our interactive exercise. We just wanted to share that as COVID-19, the pandemic sort of hit the social sector probably early on this year, we've already actively tried to find ways to support our members. So here we have three examples of how we've been helping. The first one, we have a resource hub, a website dedicated to resources globally with articles or resources that are produced by law firms and our legal members to offer to our organizations. So if you're looking into a particular country, into a particular legal issue, there could be resources there for you. And we have a link in our PowerPoint at the end as well for this. We also produced a legal health checklist, which we'll go through later as well, to help you identify potential legal issues that may be arising as you, the pandemic may have forced you to change some of your operations, how you're looking to fundraise and things like that. Or you could have canceled events and what would be the legal implications for those. This health checklist will help you identify what you need to look into as potential legal issues. And finally, we've also been running different webinars with law firms speaking on particular topics. We've done two in our region, one on employment as a global regional perspective, and another one specifically in Malaysia, looking into employment issues. Those are available, so we can also share that with you if you are interested, and you can let us know. Over to Emily.
Thank you, Fiona. Sorry about dropping off. I think my Wi-Fi today is having a bit of a bad day. Apologies about that again. So we have, as we just mentioned, pull some resources together for a COVID-19 response. Now, understanding that the world is reopening and each country, has specific and regulations and requirements and national governance change about almost every day, every week or so. These legal checklists is aimed to have you thinking from a broader perspective and just like help you raise flags on when you should be seeking potentially legal help. So the checklist is available online. Everything that we've discussed, by the way, the guides, all the resources, we'll make sure to send you afterwards. Everything's available for free on our website, but we'll make sure that you receive in your emails a list so that you can quickly access those tools. Next slide, please. So just a bit of interaction. We've been talking a bit almost nonstop. Thank you for everyone also in the chat who's been asking some questions, either like to open to public or sometimes privately. I'd like you, if possible, to take your phone and scan this QR code, or Fiona, if you could please copy paste the link into the chat box, that would be helpful. So just to have a bit of an interaction with you guys, we'll just ask you some kind of very broad, answers about some maybe potential legal needs that you may have. All the answers that you are going to provide a bit similarly to the other poll. On another platform, but similarly, it's all anonymous. So feel free, even if you answer something that you're not sure that you would like other people to know. I mean, the questions are very broad anyway, but all the answers would be coming in anonymously. So Fiona, so I'll leave a few seconds for folks to click on the link. let us know in the chat if you have if you struggle on seeing the questions. There's a few, I think maybe 5 or 8 questions, and we'll hopefully I know the time is going quickly and we have a lot more to cover, so maybe we're going to be going a bit faster. So please click on the link and let us know if you have any hiccups. Fiona, can you potentially share the screen on the questions to see the results page?
Yes, so
it's already okay.
Yes, I see that people are already voting. As you're waiting, I realized that I was not sharing the screen from the original exercise. So I'm just sharing it here now and giving time for people to be going into the next exercise. So here was the results on where everybody was based. And here are the areas that all of you are working in.
Awesome.
Yeah, so now going to the next exercise. Yeah.
Yes, okay, great, sounds good. So I think out of all participants, we do count as well. So I think there's a few people who hasn't responded yet, but that kind of gives a number. If you, I'll move on to the next questions. If you haven't responded to the previous ones, that's fine. You can jump in and arrive into this ball at any time. So are your governing documents up to date? Okay, so we have 5 no and 1 yes. So that's already a good indication that at least 5 of you might require some support in terms of like reviewing your governing documents and make sure that everything's up to speed. I'll go to the other question right now. So are you aware of your organization's financial reporting obligations? So I mean, most of you should have some kind of like financial reporting obligations. When we talk about financial reporting obligations, think about where are you getting your money from? Are you getting grants? Are you getting have you raised money from social impact investors? What kind of reporting do they ask? Do they ask for something quarterly? Do they ask for something annually? Is it clear for you? So yeah, so in terms of answers, yes, we're all set. Good for you guys. Yes, but we would appreciate some help. That's fine. The lawyers can always help, support in terms of like understanding really the terms, like what is required from your whether donors or investors or shareholders. They can help you clarify like what needs to be done. And we are unsure of our obligations. Again, lawyers can help you like go with you with the agreements or that you have with your donors or investors and see what is required, what kind of documents do you need to prepare, and they could help you draft potentially a template to help you get a head start with this. So next question. If you do business online, are your website terms and conditions up to date? So that's a bit similarly to what we were talking, what I mentioned earlier with like intellectual property, for example, especially with COVID-19. I know a lot of social enterprise have tried to, even for running events, people, folks who are doing in-person events, now everything has to be online. Is everything okay? Do you need to have something? Do you need to get people to sign something? Sometimes it's hard to tell depending on which platforms you're using. So I see a lot of no's and some are not applicable. Okay, that's great. I mean, that's a good thing to think about. Other question now. So do you have clarity of your rights and obligations in your commercial contracts? So again, that's a very, very broad questions. I knew we would have, social enterprise from different countries working in a broad areas of industry. So that's why this question is broad. So, I mean, whether you are, you're providing a service, whether you're doing a partnerships with like, grassroots organizations, you're, expanding a program, whether you're selling a product. I mean, I think there's always some kind of commercial contracts in the background. So once again, okay, so I see that folks, most people would like some clarification. So once again, that goes back to like clarifying the terms of potentially the template that you already have in place. Next question. So, okay, so IP now, do you have a brand, idea, invention, or written work you want or need to protect? I mean, maybe your trademark's already settled and everything's clear. Maybe not. Maybe you don't think that right now it's the right time. Indeed, as I mentioned earlier, the trademarks, I mean, cost money, and the the amount would have to be borne on the social enterprise. It's not because you have a social enterprise that you need sometimes right now a trademarks to be registered. So lawyers can come in at this point and advise you, like, is right now, does it make sense right now? Are you infringing? Let's say you're a very new social enterprise and you're still brainstorming a bit about the name. You're still flexible about the brand. So lawyers could help you, for example, making a double check and get clearance to see if your brand, for example, has been used in the country that you're operating or not. By the way, there's a question that came up earlier. I replied directly on the chat, but I thought it was an interesting one. Someone asked us if we were providing support for social enterprise or organizations that are only expanding. The answer is no. We do provide assistance within the country. So let's say you're in Indonesia and for example, you're only working in Indonesia, that's fine. We do have legal capacity and law firm members in Indonesia that can help. Same with Malaysia, same with Singapore. So it's not only for business who are going global. I mean, we do, and apologies if that wasn't clear, but even if you're doing work, in the country that you're based only, I'm sure you folks are all doing like wonderful work. We do support that. So that's good. Let's move on to the next questions real quick. Have your employment contracts recently been reviewed by lawyers? So employment contracts, again, even if you're working with a team of volunteers or interns, I mean, there's some kind of, employments, there's some kinds of contracts that it's good to have to kind of manage and understand the scope of their relationship. For example, even if you have volunteers, maybe they have access to some, sensitive information from your organizations. You want to make sure that no one goes away with, your trade secrets or, your secret recipe. So you want to make sure that the volunteers they keep everything together at the same place. So that's a kind of contracts and agreement when we think of employment that the lawyers can be reviewed. So okay, so I see that 7 people almost, I mean, everyone who's been participating in the poll so far saying no. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. That's the last questions for the poll. Thank you for everyone for your participation. Let's go back to the slides now. I'm being conscious of time. I want to make sure that we have enough time also to be answering questions later on. Just to dig a bit deeper, I'll try to do this quick though, and because I really want you guys to ask as many questions as possible. Next slide, please. So that's the legal health check that we pulled together on the COVID-19 response. So all the questions that you see right now, I'm just gonna skim through it very quickly. These are the same questions that are on the checklist that we have online. So if you feel that this is going too fast, don't worry. As I mentioned, we'll be sending this through. So this is a bit like deeper. When we think of like a legal health check, what we like is like we start global and we start large and we try to funnel and channel it down to something more precise. So these are questions and the checklist that we thought in the context of COVID-19. So as mentioned, the world is reopening right now. Countries, I mean, from Singapore to Indonesia to here us, for example, in Thailand, everything's very different. So, yeah, okay, thank you. So in terms of governance and risk management, for example, a lot of companies have to shift their operations from the office to online, to work from home, and from in-person to online. So what did it mean in terms of running your operations? Were you able to operate, your business safely? Did you need to have some risk assessments, some business continuity plan? What does it mean for the directors or trustees of your organization? What's like how much your board needs to be involved? What are the responsibilities of the board and director through all that? When sometimes like business operations has to stop or has to be kind of like put on hold. So what happens with board meetings? Everything can be conducted online? What about shareholders meetings? So that's kind of all the questions of governance and risk management issues that maybe you guys have had and maybe right now still have to think about in terms of COVID-19. And that these are questions that lawyers can help you respond if you're not sure or if you would like some clearer response. Next slide, please. In terms of contract, same thing. So, we've had many organizations in our network reaching out to us with, a bunch of different stuff. So sometimes we've had social enterprise who their business was already online, and with COVID-19 they just see like a growth and expansion of their operation. So that's great. So it can go both ways. Unfortunately, of course, like events, a lot of people had to like put everything on hold. So a lot of cancellation, a lot of rescheduling, a lot of what happens with the force majeure clause. You know, a lot of people were contracting agreements before COVID-19, and now with everything putting on hold, what's going on? What's your rights and obligations? Is COVID-19 applicable in the force majeure clause? If there's no force majeure clause in your contract, you know, what to do next? So I mean, I won't go through all the questions. You guys will have the opportunity to, you know, to think about this more in depth later, but that's kind of give you a bit of background on how to start and how to think about that. Next slide, please. So again, tax finances and solvency stuff. So I mean, not really the favorite of everyone, to be honest, but that's something that's part of every social enterprise and organizations. Financial and tax records filings, are they up to date? Some countries have changed the financial years. Some banks and some governments are providing, you know, some remedy, some kind of scheme. And now everything's changed. Now our lawyers are trying to make a good job at keeping up to speed with this and providing advice on what to do, what kind of like tax relief programs potentially is possible to access, whether you're an NGO or whether you're a social enterprise, in your case, what type of industries maybe sometimes might fall, access to some remedies. So I think that's something very useful. Also, unfortunately, we've had some social enterprise and NGOs that maybe, you know, they were at the early start, and then COVID-19 happened, and now what's next, you know? So, and they've had to rethink their whole structure. Maybe they're on the verge of insolvency. So is there a way that we can do a restructuring of the company to save the company itself? So that's some kind of advice that the lawyers can do and can give. So think about like merging like M&A, like mergers and acquisition. You're on the verge of terminating. Is it possible to make some kind of agreement with a potential like collaborators or partners to save the company? Or what kind of legal structure is possible to help? Next slide, please. Employees and volunteers, once again, that's something that comes up. I mean, that's the number one question we've had. We've had like multiple social enterprise being like, okay, now everyone's working from home. What can I do as an employer? What should I do? We've had some social enterprise that, you know, they wanted to do some pay cuts. So for example, all of their senior management or everyone across, you know, the company had to suffer a 15 or 20% pay cut, sometimes even more. What's possible? You know, what are the rights? What is the right process? What are the legal way you can present this to your employees and volunteers? And again, I mean, that's kind of like health and safety measures. And you know, we've all been to like working home. I mean, I think most of us right now, we must be taking this call from home. I mean, what happens next, you know, and what are like the right way also to, in terms of health and safety, for when the employees will have to come back to the office, which is something that should be coming up very soon. So work from home policy, yes, but what about, you know, preparing for the post-COVID? That's something that that lawyers also can support. Next slide, please. Data protection and privacy. Again, I mean, most of the employees or volunteers or interns have been working from home. What happens with data protections? What are the right platforms? What should you do as an employer to make sure that your company's data is well? Do you have NDAs put in place? Have everyone signed something? Which, you know, do you understand well the platforms that you're working with? I mean, there's a bit of an angle that is non-legal here, but I mean, lawyers can also, you know, help you find who else can provide the answers that you need on that regards. Next slide, please. So real estate. So, I mean, as we mentioned, I won't go into this one quickly, but I mean, lease agreement, I mean, again, it very much depends on the country. It also very much depends on the landlord and tenants. But I mean, we found some social enterprise that were able to renegotiate their lease. Some landlords are keen to like provide a kind of like a discount, kind of like a new terms for the rent for the duration of the crisis. Some governments also are putting measures to kind of reduce sometimes electricity bills. You know, what's going on? What is possible for you to access? If you were in the process of negotiating a lease and now, you know, everything's kind of put on hold because of COVID, how can you make sure to re-pick up the negotiations in the right way? And yeah, so just to help you with your rights and obligations in terms of real estate, everyone's like offices and even home, you know, rent is always a big part of like a company's budget. So so how to deal with this, how to make sure that you're all covered and that everything's clear for you. Please, next slide. Insurance, I think that's the last slide of our COVID-19 very quick you know, run through. So, you know, are you covered for losses for the COVID-19? So what kind of insurance do you have? Like professional liability, okay, but what about like business operations? Are you covered or not? Like, again, it goes a bit with the force majeure clause in the sense that like what kind of coverage do you have? Is your insurance covering COVID-19 crisis? What can you access, what not? Is it possible right now that the crisis has started to get additional coverage? You know, so that's kind of like the type of advice that lawyers can help. So next slide, please. I think we're already, I mean, it's about time. I think we arrived to questions and next step. Thank you to everyone who have asked something on the chat. Feel free right now if you want to ask some more. That's when you can go crazy on the chat box. We'll make sure to cover as much as possible. Okay, so question here. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so question about GDPR. So about GDPR, cookie law, COPPA, should we concern about this discriminatively on case by case or user basis, or we just comply to all of these laws no matter what country, because these rules take a lot of effort? Indeed, these rules take a lot of effort. That's exactly the type of questions that lawyers can help support. So if you have questions about GDPR, whether you're doing business online and you're not sure, and you have potentially like people in Europe or in other countries, and you're wondering, you know, under which rule am I supposed to be complying? That's the type of questions that lawyers can help support. Now, as we just mentioned as an introduction, I mean, we cannot be providing legal advice right now, obviously on this call. The TrustLaw service really aims to be connecting social enterprise with lawyers who will be providing you specific legal advice. So, so indeed, it matters what country, and it's a case by case whether of your own operations. So, you know, I would encourage you to, I mean, this is, you know, the type of question really that lawyers can help you support. What else do we have? Do you have legal structure or partnerships amongst co-founder? Okay, so so there's a lot of questions that I see that are really, I mean, they're more legal specific. So I think, okay, there's many. I'm trying to respond to them in a logical order. So I mean, for example, for again, like, do you have legal structure on partnerships amongst co-founder? I mean, this is the type of question, like, I understand that, I mean, I guess your need would be to, like, you have co-founders and you would like to know what kind of partnerships agreement, what kind of structure do you need to set up as co-founders? This is, again, the type of legal question that lawyers can help you. So that's, again, it goes with governance and structure. So this is the type of projects that we can support.
Yeah, just jumping on, depending on which country, I think the question is from Ada. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. If you're based in ASEAN, we have the ASEAN Structuring Guide, and it does cover partnerships as one of the options if that country has it. So yeah, we will have the link to the guide later on, so feel free to have a look and see. And then as you read through the guide, it may prompt you to think about whether this is something that you want and whether this is something that TrustLaw can help you as lawyers to assist you on.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. Hendy, I say you're detailing very well what you're doing. You seem like you're doing some very impactful work with mental health in helping mental health issues and dealing with volunteers. There's something that you mentioned in your comment. I mean, you seem to have a lot of questions what do you suggest I should do first? My worry is also legal advice is so expensive. So I just want to reiterate, the TrustLaw service is 100% free. All the lawyers that we help you find with TrustLaw is 100% free. So everything that the goal of the exercise today was to help you think of your legal needs. Now, what do you suggest I should do first? So, I mean, we'll keep on taking other questions, and we'll make sure, you know, if you're happy to share your, you know, we can also help you like reply like one-on-one, like privately by email afterwards. But I think it would just make sure to clarify what's next, you know, like right now we've been just doing these workshops together, and you potentially have identified that indeed you do have legal needs. What next? So, I mean, what you can do, the next step is to become a member of our platform. It's a two-step process. So maybe Fiona, we can go, I don't know, Fiona, if you maybe you spotted some questions that I should reply before.
Yeah, there was an earlier question. I think we still have a few questions, and then we'll go through the membership part. So yeah, everything is in the slides, no worries. I wanted to highlight on a question that came up quite early on from Mission BRMC, and understanding that your work is about livelihood project with ladies who are making their products, and whether you would need a contract for that. And Emily, please feel free to add. I think we've already highlighted from some of the tips from our social enterprise members that getting employment contracts or agreements in place can help boost the professionalism of the social enterprise. It can also help protect both your company and the ladies who will be working for you, and avoid disputes in the long term. But whether you want that, it's up to you. But this is something that is potentially, it could turn into a legal issue later on. So our advice would be that you can really consider whether this is something that you would want to do.
Thank you, Fiona. There's an interesting question here by Albert. If we invite social investors to come to our enterprise, how to keep the vision as the founder stated in first place, even though they come in as majority? Wow. So that's a great question. To be honest, there's how to keep the vision in itself. It's not really a legal question per se. It's really, I think, you know, more like an internal conversation you should have with your co-founders or, you know, with your executive team and management or board. I think, you know, from a legal perspective, what I can see is, you know, how lawyers can help with this is potentially advise on the structure that you would want to put in between, you know, your operations, so your your senior management or, you know, executive team and the social investors, and, you know, and like what kind of like what are, I mean, their rights and obligations as investors, yes. As we addressed earlier, you know, what kind of clarifying what are your reporting obligations. So is that the only relationship between you guys, or if they want to come in, as you mentioned, as a majority, how to keep control. So that's how to keep control of your business, actually. So the lawyers can help you with the structure. Now, how to keep the vision, I think it's something that is much more like of an internal concern. So the lawyers won't provide business advice or, you know, vision or, you know, but they are there to support very on building the legal mechanisms to make you feel comfortable in running your own social enterprise. What next? Okay, so we have some practical questions that are coming in. How are the lawyers filtered? Very interesting questions. Okay, so okay, so we do have yeah, so this is I mean, we could jump on another call if you feel that my response is too broad. So we do have a vetting process and criteria, both for our NGOs and social enterprise members and our law firms partner. So in terms of you know, NGOs and social enterprise, we haven't gone into depth, but there's a link that we're going to send you guys to make sure that we have, you know, we have eligibility criteria. This is basically our internal due diligence. From social enterprise, we request that you've been registered for a year, for example, that you have some proof of financial sustainability, that you have a clear track record of of mission or impact work. We also support only organizations and social enterprise that are non-political and non-religious. Faith-based is okay, but yeah, no, non-religious driven organizations. And for social enterprise, more specifically, we request that there's some public commitment, or in the governing documents, a commitment of reinvesting 51% or more of profits. So that's how we, on one end of the spectrum, we do vet and filter, as you said, NGOs and social enterprise. Now, to answer your questions on the lawyers, so that's a good question. I mean, we have three types of legal service provider that help us and that respond to projects. We have law firms, which comes sometimes from an international network, so international law firms who have branches a bit everywhere around the world. We have also like local law firms who are sometimes a bit more smaller, but are very, very experts on local legislations. We have also in-house legal teams. So sometimes big corporations with a broad number of lawyers, who are experts. For example, we have the team of like Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, HPE, who has capacity in Indonesia. They have 200 lawyers, worldwide, and they're very keen to support. They have, experience in M&A, IP, corporate. So we have in-house legal team who are happy to take on this type of projects. And we also have sometimes individual lawyers. So sometimes it's lawyers that work in a big law firm, but the law firm as an entity do not want to take on some pro bono work. But these lawyers have, they want to use their spare times or their evenings and weekends to be working on these pro bono projects. So these are individual lawyers who are driven by the mission and they offer to support in their own individual capacity. Now, when they're big law firms like international law firms, in-house legal teams, we always kind of do a run check to make sure that that there's no fraud, or that the law firm is also well recognized. If it's individual lawyer, we request always for like 2 letters of reference, and also we make sure that and also depending on the country, we always require that our lawyers, law firms have insurance coverage. But we do, I say we request this when we match it to the national legislation. So for example, in Singapore, it's required, maybe not Singapore, sorry. Let's say, for example, in Hong Kong, it's required that lawyers have insurance to cover them for like professional liability. So we request that our lawyers from that jurisdiction have insurance. Now, for example, in India, in India, the lawyers do not require to have insurance. So in this case, we do not require that our lawyers have insurance. So we basically adapt our requirements to every jurisdiction. I hope this helps clarify. Let me know if it doesn't.
There was a question following on from this. I think that's quite relevant. So I think we can take it now as well from Mason, whether the lawyers are engaged at their law firms or at their individual capacity.
Engaged at the law firm or at individual. So it can be both. So sometimes, some law firms have, a target of pro bono lawyers, pro bono hours and projects that they want to do. So it's a bit, think about it as, pro bono within a law firm works a bit like a CSR. So there's international law firms who have a commitment of delivering a certain numbers of hours pro bono. And there are law firms that this concept of pro bono kind of do not exist. So it's only as a pure like case by case basis. Then the lawyers would be taking this on because they're passionate about, the social enterprise, or passionate about the mission. So it's our role also, when we receive a request, we always draft the project that we try to make it as appealing as possible to our legal member community. So, a lawyer can decide on its own individual capacity if they can do it. We're not, if it's pro bono, it's free. So, we don't inquire them like, if they take on the project, we we are here to support, to make sure that the project gets done. So we do, I mean, once you're connected with a lawyer, it's you know, we let you guys manage this relationship on one-to-one, but we always remain in the back end to make sure that the project progress. Of course, sometimes some you know, lawyers in big law firms especially can get super busy with their commercial contracts. So we just make sure that the pro bono projects are equally considered and that the project moves on. So we do check in once in a while just to make sure that, you know, everything's progressing, that everyone's responsive. So that's how we help kind of like facilitating the relationship. I hope that helps answering. If it doesn't, let me know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, great. Thank you, Emily. I think you also answered the question that Joy raised about the liability. Just a few questions that have come in with Mason about whether our the network of lawyers we have can do legal due diligence checks on social enterprises on behalf of impact investors. This is what we cannot offer. This is what we do not do, but that's why we have the legal health check. That's why we have workshops like this to help you all to see if there are potential legal issues that may come up so that you can avoid getting into these issues in the longer run.
Yeah.
And yes, Emily, if you had something.
Yeah, no, so that's true. So to come back to, just to complement, so, you know, a lawyer-client relationship is a one-to-one basis. So when we match you with a law firm, the lawyer is your lawyer. So they won't do this due diligence for another party. They don't do it on behalf of someone else. They can help you to understand what you need to get done, but they won't be representing both you and the you know, the impact investor. But they can support you in the process. Joy Lee, you have some very interesting question. Does TrustLaw bear any liability for issues that arise during service delivery, or is it purely a broker matchmaker? That's the second. We are a matchmaker. We are a coordination platform. That's why in terms of liability, that's why we request our lawyers to have their own insurance and liability if any issues coming up. That's why also we always remain in the back end. If you have trouble, you know, you think you misunderstand your lawyer or miscommunications, feel free to get back to us. We'll try to see what we can do. But we are basically, you have to see our service as we are an online platform that aims to connect you and match you guys. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to, you know, carry on the relationship specifically with a lawyer. And how long does it take from a typical request to be matched? That's a very specific question. And maybe, I don't know if we, I feel like a lot of answers would be helpful with the other slide that we have that really shows kind of like how from the legal needs to like the completion of the project, how it works.
Yes, before we move on though, there were two questions earlier. I want to make sure that we don't miss any questions.
Okay.
There were two questions from Terrence. One on how do we cover liabilities of our volunteer doctors helping in our medical clinic? And this is exactly the question that you can be asking our lawyers so that they can give you advice on the different ways. It could be through agreements in place. It could be depending on what you already have. So this is exactly what our lawyers can be assisting you on. And the other question about the legal issues are very country specific. Do we have lawyers that can help, especially with tax obligations, for example, in Cambodia? Emily, feel free to jump in. But in terms of the legal capacity, tax is an area that the capacity usually is a little lower. So depending on the country, say in Cambodia, we probably would be able to find tax lawyers to help, but it varies across countries, and there will be countries with more lawyers. There will be countries that maybe we haven't got any yet, so we'll be actively trying to see if there are other lawyers who can support as well.
Yeah, very true. Thank you, Fiona. I mean, indeed, like our legal capacity depends per country. Yeah, so, and we're always looking to kind of like both expanding our pool of members, of course, and people we can help, but also, you know, we're doing this with you guys, but we also have, you know, workshops and roundtables with law firms from, you know, in a bunch of countries to explain, you know, the value of doing pro bono, the impact for them, and to get them on board. So we're always looking to kind of like expand our networks in the region. And yeah, so it varies per country, but we're always trying to be as optimistic as possible. And just to answer real quick the question of Joely, between the typical request to matching time, on average, once the legal request is posting on the website, it takes between 1 week to 1 month on average to get connected on average. And indeed, between closing of the project, well, it as you mentioned, you know, in your own comment, it totally depends on the scope of the request. If it's the review of a template that is, you know, quite straightforward, it can be a matter of like hours and days. If it's registering a trademark or setting up an entity in a new country, of course, it can take, you know, it can be over like multiple months. If you have if you want a cross-border research involving 8 jurisdictions, of course, it's going to take much longer. So Fiona, I don't know if we've covered most of the questions or if I missed something.
One last question from Hendy. So asking about social enterprises structures that are purely incorporated or corporation and foundation combo. These hybrid models are actually becoming very common from the requests that we are receiving. So again, if this is something that you're considering, feel free to contact us and we can connect you with the lawyers to see what we can do. I'm mindful of the time, so Emily, we can move on to the last part. But if there are any other questions, we will have our email address at the end, so feel free to contact us and we can set up a call and discuss more in details. Right. Should I go through this then?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah. So yes, so after all that we have shared so far, and thank you so much for all your questions and your enthusiasm. And with the interactive exercise also, it seems like there may be some legal needs that we can help you with. So the first step then is actually to join us as a member. And as Emily mentioned, the membership is completely free. It allows you to create an account on our portal, and that's where you submit requests to the lawyers. And as you can see on the screen, we have a criteria for social enterprises to become our members. The key ones are highlighted here. So you have to be incorporated already somewhere in the world, and you have to share with us your registration document. If you are not yet registered, we have that ASEAN structuring guide that we'll share with you to see if you can get started with your registration process, or if there are specific challenges, feel free to talk to us individually as well. We'll also ask for information on your social mission and to see the impacts that you're trying to drive or whether you've achieved impact already. And that goes onto your profile. When we share your projects with lawyers, that's what the lawyers see. So the more, we just ask for precise, but the more information that you can offer on your impact and on your social mission, then that's when the lawyers can see what you're really doing and whether they're interested to support you. We also ask for financial sustainability, understanding that there may be issues now with COVID-19, but the idea is that we hope that with the legal assistance is to help you continue growing, so that you don't have struggles to continue on projects halfway through after we've connected you. And then lastly, Emily has already mentioned, for social enterprises, we also request a proof of your company reinvesting at least 51% majority of your profits towards your social objectives, either in your governing documents or on your website, and we can share more information on that. But so the first step is then to go onto our website where there will be questions regarding the criteria that you would need to answer. It shouldn't take too long. And if you have any extra documents like an annual report that you would like to share with us, there will be a link for you to upload them as well. And once we receive your application, we will then process that and aim to get back to you within a week. And if we have additional questions, we may ask you, so that once your membership is finalized, this is the process to then request for assistance through our platform. Making it, mindful of the time, making it shorter. So as you go onto the platform, you can then click new request, you submit that. We have a legal team that will then have a call with you to discuss what exactly are you looking to request, making sure that we cover all the things you need, possibly separating it into different projects if they're in different legal areas. And when you agree on the project description, we send that out to our lawyers in our weekly email, and we give them 1 week to reply. And if more than one lawyer is coming back with an offer, you get to choose which lawyer to work with. If there are no lawyers yet, we will then actively start reaching out to the lawyers that we think match your project best. So once we have offers, we'll communicate that to you, and then you can take that forward with the lawyers. Were there questions? Yeah. So here are the links that of all the things that we've mentioned. So we'll be sharing the slides with you so that you can click into them for more information. And lastly, just 1 minute before we end, we promise you this will be the last exercise we have together. It has been wonderful to share this time with you and understand more about your concerns. And we would love to know what you thought about this workshop. So we have a 1 minute survey. I will send you the link right now in the chat box. It would be great if you can log on to our survey and let us know any comments and suggestions. And once you complete the survey, there's a space where you can provide us with your email as well. So when we have your email, we can send you the slides from our end. So thank you everyone for your time. And also thank you again, Bernice and Wayne and TV and Asia for hosting this with us. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. And yeah, over to you, Emily.
Thank you, Fiona, for wrapping this up. Please, everyone, do give us our feedbacks. We always looking forward to hearing from you, and we're hoping to hear you back also in terms of like membership. If you have any questions or if anything's unclear, feel free to drop us a line. Thank you also, Bernice and Wayne. It's been wonderful today. And that's it for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Fiona and Emily. This has been very insightful. In fact, I was just privately texting Bernice and say, I am banging my head on the wall. I shouldn't have made this an elective. I should have made this a mandatory session because I used to run a company and I know personally how involved it is to engage lawyers and expensive. I was just telling Bernice, I said I would have killed if I have a platform like TrustLaw available to me years ago. So to all of you guys attending this, run, don't walk, run to quickly sign up on the platform, because I can personally vouch how valuable this service that TrustLaw is providing really is. So don't hesitate anymore, just sign up, okay? So we really appreciate Fiona and Emily for sharing this with us. This has really been invaluable. I suspect you'll be getting a lot more questions in the coming days or even weeks ahead from some of our attendees, or even some of these who didn't join us today physically, but because the session is recorded, I know some of our other social enterprises actually are thinking about some things along these issues that actually you guys brought up. So maybe, who knows, right? There could be additional inquiries coming in. So thank you so much. This has been really amazing. I really appreciate it. Emily and Fiona, once again, thank you for your time. Yeah, and we wish you a great day and a great week ahead.
Thank you.
Anything else, Bernice?
Nope, I think that's it. The email address handy is just maybe Fiona, if you can paste it in the chat so it's a bit easier to contact and copy, that'd be great. But otherwise, we can leave the chat room open for a little bit just to for people who to continue to respond. Again, if you want the presentation for today, at the end of the feedback, they will there's a space to enter your email and they will send you the presentation. Thank you everyone for your time today and for joining. Again, we'll leave the room open for a little bit just for you to get all the information that you need. And thank you, Emily, and thank you, Fiona.
Thank you.
Hi, Emily, this is Joy, or Fiona. I have a question real quick. In Indonesia, what's the average size of the clients you end up serving? Are you mainly dealing with grassroots level, very small scale enterprises, or does it go all the way up to more high growth enterprises here in Indonesia?
I can jump in on this. Actually, with Indonesia, we have more nonprofits than social enterprises. So I think traditionally in our legal network, lawyers, and also I guess it's also the evolvement of the social sector with more social enterprises rising up when nonprofits were really the main type before. But when it comes to social enterprises, we have a smaller number. Some of them are more early stage when they joined us, and by this time they're kind of in the growth stage. But we also have a few of the larger ones, and some of them are also kind of a network organization also done to support other social enterprises.
And so by large, do you mean revenues of, what range would large be in your definition?
I guess, yeah, revenue is one of them, but it could also be the work that they're doing and the number of beneficiaries that they're able to serve. Okay.
I mean, at this point, I'd be curious to hear maybe why you're asking this in terms of like legal support. Like we have what I can say is we have international law firms based in Indonesia that have also Bahasa capacity to support. So big like international firms such as like HSF, White and Case, as I mentioned earlier, like the Hewlett Packard, HPE team is there. So, and they've been very happy to work with both, like I mean across the globe, as from a legal law firm's perspective, they are used to be working with huge clients and also grassroots organizations. So so I'm just jumping in on that because I don't know personally for your personal reality. So, but just to know that we can provide support for any kind of social enterprise on that spectrum.
Yeah, mainly because I'm an expat living here, and then our experience with lawyers. So I'm running a nonprofit, but we have kind of a social enterprise incubating under us because there is no social enterprise specific structure. But then our experience is sometimes you'll get lawyers who are of all shapes and sizes, or they're not real. There's not many lawyers that are familiar with the yayasan, the social foundation space, especially when you start getting into potential commercial activity. And then they say, well, then you just need to talk to a business lawyer, or it's kind of a black and white gap. And then if you're dealing with tech or kind of a growth-oriented enterprise, that is another field of expertise that we have a hard time finding in local lawyers. So it's like you almost have to piece it all together yourself. But I've been wondering, if you work with international firms that have that well-rounded network of expertise, is probably more effective. And
thank you for raising this up. I mean, we know, for example, like social enterprise or nonprofits, for example, has sometimes legal needs that encompass like different types of legal expertise. So what we do is when we have we do split in terms of different projects, and we find lawyers who are specifically experts in that area. So if you need something specifically in tech, like we'll find you a lawyer who has like that tech experience. If that tech product is linked to a team and you're wondering about employment, well, it might be another lawyer within the same firm, or maybe somewhere else these international, especially these international law firms, they're kind of used to be working together, and especially the ones who've been like on our platform, like they're used to kind of collaborating with each other. But we always draft the projects in a very, very specific and defined manner so that it's just clear for everyone. I hope this helps. Yeah,
that's very encouraging. Because it's hard to find that multifaceted approach, or to shape to write a proper brief or a memo to tell the lawyers what we're looking for, because we deal with refugees and tech and locals and an unusual business model. So it's been hard to find the right fit. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Great. Looking forward to carrying maybe this conversation, maybe not offline, but like off this call, and just to find the right fit for you guys.
I've pinged my board and said I think we have a good resource here, so I'll be looking into it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm hopping off, but
Thank you.
looking forward to being in touch.
Thank you. Same.
Thank you.
I think just that alone is already worth the price of admission, huh? I know Joy's business model, and I understand what her challenges are like, because it's really multifaceted, and you find lawyers very specific in one area and not another. So yeah, I would really love to see the kind of legal support she can possibly get. Okay, any more questions from anyone? Okay, seems pretty quiet. I guess everyone is either ready to go or ready to sign up, so we shall not hold them back. Well, thank you once again, Fiona and Emily. This has been very, very insightful. We really appreciate it on behalf of TBN Asia, as well as the social enterprises that we support. Thank you very much. Wishing you guys a very good day.
Same.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Right.
Bye-bye.